I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Highlights Eurosport.
Who's going to break Haystack's world title?
For my Gosby! Oh, he's done it! And look at these two go! Ichi Hoy is going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done.
What a race it's been!
Formula SimRacing returns to the Ardennes just in time for the championship to heat up. 4 races remain this season, and we're getting the charge from the back from Colin Spork after dominating the race a couple of weeks ago at Imola. Let's see what happens today. The Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps is round 6 for the FSR WC season for 2023. Myself, Cameron Roger, and Zach Sweeney alongside me for the coverage of today's action. Mike Yao on the production behind the scenes. And Zach, it's certainly been a crazy season so far. You and me, of course, you and O'Leary as well in the commentary booth this season. We've enjoyed some great races, but it was a little bit more dominant last time out.
Yeah, but it's good news, I think, for Colin Spork, for Alpine Esports in general. The reigning champion is back to his winning ways, which is exactly what we love to see. It's been a rough season for him. I mean, obviously that 11th place back at Bahrain sort of made amends for it a little bit. In Barcelona, then it was crashing back down to 0 when we went to Montreal, and then a 2nd place and a 1st place over the course of the last 2 rounds has meant that Colin Spork is very much back to his winning ways, as I say. And well, after winning in Spa this time last season, we'll see what the Flying Dutchman can do.
Yeah, he's coming, and as you say, not the best start to the season in the first 3 races, but he is really on a charge. And if you remember back to the interviews post-race at Imola, he was absolutely fired up. He was coming for this championship, and the likes of Dennis Jordan and Yannis Simičić, who joined him on the podium, were a little bit more subdued, but certainly motivated. 4 races remain, as we say, Spa, Monza, Suzuka and Sao Paulo before we finish the season on the 15th of October, just shy of 2 months' time. And I wonder, Zach, what we're going to see today. It's certainly a different style of track to what we had at Imola. It's going to be low downforce, high speed, but a lot of slipstream games and racecraft to come along with that.
Oh, for sure, yes. Spa is always a really, really fun circuit when it comes to racing. Slipstream trains are, probably going to be what we expect, even with a slightly reduced DRS for today. The slipstream is still as strong as you would expect, but we've been sort of talking about the track not potentially being as grippy and the tyre strategy being completely wide open. So, while we are going to have a close field on track, we're also going to have a very spicy pit lane.
And here is your standing on the bottom right of your screen. Simičić leading the way, but just by 11 points now to Dennis Jordan, who's been catching him up in the previous 3 races. Jordan winning 2 of the last 3. Jake Dennehan, he's had a pretty consistent season so far, up there in 3rd place. But here is Colin Spork on 83 points, just shy of 40 points off Simičić. But with 4 races to go, that is still mathematically possible and also reasonable to do so, but Simičić does need to finish off the podium a few times for that to happen. So it's still in Simičić's grasp as long as he keeps on getting those results. Mrocek, Siebel, they're having a bit of a close battle as well. Burlak, Maguire, Bock and Deval round out your top 10 in the standings, and it's really starting to heat up. And here are the cars on track as we get into qualifying.
Yeah, qualifying. We're maybe thinking it is going to be slightly important today. Who knows what is to come, but we're getting a lot of predictions that Colin Spork might be the one to tip the scales and maybe get himself back onto the pole position. You can just see as to how fairly bumpy the circuit is here today, and it is a very fine operating window that you have to get the car into in order to be quick. I mean, over the course of Academy and Pro, the 2 lower divisions of FSR, we've seen as Colin Spork has a bit of a spin on the exit of La Source, which is going to be very costly in all fairness. Well, with how long the lap is, and you only get 10 minutes in qualifying, a spin at any point, ruining any of the laps, is going to be, quite a big setback in the amount of, lap time you can extract.
Yeah, we mentioned this just before we came on air, Zach Wellmere, how it's so long around here. You really have to sort of push on your outlaps to secure yourself those 3 laps inside the 10 minutes just because it's so long, so 1 minute 43-ish we're going to be looking for the pole position. Plus on your outlap, you want to go a bit slower, you want to get the tyres in the correct window, so definitely not easy, and a bit of a spin there might not help him indeed. But Ragshot, he was looking fast in that practice session, which is why he's up the top. That order is sort of what you saw in that practice session, and he was leading the way, got pole position back in Silverstone as well, so he knows what to do in qualifying. Let's see what he does up towards Pouon. We're going to see this pretty much flat out, or even the tiniest lift of some of these drivers right on the limit on the rear end.
Yeah, Pouon is a very, very fun corner, especially in the sort of the modern day Formula 1 machines, with just how fast you can chuck the car into the corner, and a little bit of a slide down the rear end. These the FSR cars are fairly twitchy when you get on the rear end, but still able to keep it under control for Janis Brachok. As we say, very strong in qualifying. Unfortunately, not quite good enough in the race, at least on sort of a consistent basis. We saw last time at Imola, was able to get pole position, tried to go for a fairly bold one stop. It didn't quite work out for him, so we'd like to see what the Arnaz Brabham driver can do. If he is able to hook up, because the potential definitely is there. Seeing the first set of times come in, Jake Dennehan able to get himself to provisional pole. Across the line, what is it going to be for Janis Brachok? Third place, respectable banker lap time.
That is a pretty good lap time from Jake Dennehan, well into the 42s, 42.5. That is really setting the gauntlet, as you see, leading by a quarter of a second to the 2015 champion Petter Burlak, as we now come on board with David Mrocek through this middle sector. This is where you're going to see potentially a differential in the lap times of some people. With this hybrid system that we've got, they have 55 seconds of deployment per lap, but this is the first lap of the year where you actually run out of those 55 seconds, such as the amount of flat out sections around this track. So you have to actually choose when you want to turn off the push to pass on some straights and then use it at other points in the lap to make your sort of most efficient times. There is a bit of skill there, as we see now Mrocek coming up towards the final corner. 43.9 in that middle sector is a little bit off what we're going to see some of the top drivers do as we come out the final chicane. What is he going to do? So a bit of a long run to the line, actually. It's not this finish line here. It is the second line at the first set of grid box. Is he going to jump himself up? Yes, he does, to 7th place.
Not a bad lap time for David Mrocek, as we now see Jerne Simoncic, a bit of a twitch on the exit of the bus stop chicane across the line. It's decent. Is it good enough? Well, it's good enough for 4th, second row. And just look at how close it is behind Jake Dennehan. We're talking thousandths of a second between each of the drivers. And considering, it's one of the longer circuits of the season, to have a qualifying this close is insane. Dennis Jordan as well for the Scuderia Ferrari Esports team has had a decent run of form. Also, what can he do on the run to the line? And, well, as he gets his way to the second spot, it's up to 8th. So, well, only 3/10 off pole, but, towards the back end of the top 10.
Yeah, and as we are on to Spa, we need to see what Jordan can do this time around. He was certainly a bit demotivated after the previous race, losing out to Jerne in that tough battle for 2nd place. And I say up into 8th place as it stands. But look how close those times are. Absolutely loving this so far. Half a second rounding out your top 11, and then another half a second down to 17th place. So very close lap times up towards the front. Jake Dennehan leading the way still by almost a quarter of a second, although Colin Sport by 0.02 of a second comes in behind to 2nd place.
Wow. What a day, by the way, for Alpine Esports. Both Sport and Burlak in 2nd and 3rd, really flying the flag quite high. But Jake Dennehan now maybe feeling a bit of pressure on his shoulders, and might well have to rise to the occasion and try and deliver on the final couple laps of this qualifying session. He's going to cross his way through sector 1. It's a 29.0, not the quickest of anyone. That of course goes to Mark Schluter all the way down in 16th place on the 28.9, but already an improvement on his previous best, and just trying to find that little bit extra time, because I think he's going to need it.
I actually quite like this that view that we had, because you could see the delta on the steering wheel there, and we'll have to see the very bottom left, that green number up a 10th a second, almost a 10th and a quarter coming in towards the final chicane here from Mark Schluter. Purple in that first sector, as you say, although very close indeed, a 0.9. Loads of drivers doing a 0.0, so it's half a 10th there, but this is looking a bit better for the German. He had a very good start to the season in Bahrain until unfortunately he collected his teammate into turn 4, which sort of ruined that one. It's a 44.3 in that middle sector though, and that is a bit of a way off from what we're going to see from the top guys who get into the 43s.
well, potentially also an validation along the way for Schluter, which, to be fair, track limits around here can be fairly difficult, but still red on the Delta, as you can see at the bottom left of his steering wheel. I mean, gains a ton of time through the final chicane, up now to just over a tenth, but loses a lot on that run to the line, and yeah, not quite able to improve upon his previous best. Mika Hakimi again, new to open wheels for this season for the Arnage Brabham sort of corporation, and only 16th place for him. Still yet to break into the top 10, but definitely showing a couple of glimmers of potential there for Mika Hakimi. It would be nice to see if he can make his way forward throughout the race.
Yeah, his teammate Brackshock has been a lot faster than him during the season, but let's see how Hakimi can do in the final sort of half of the season. We just had Yannick Bock jumping up into third place as well. Still continues to be so close for that third position. From third down to eighth, all of them are in that second tenth, or third tenth I should say, away from that pole position. So very, very close indeed. Just a blink of an eye and of an improvement from these drivers, and they will improve on this final lap that all the drivers will be working their way forward. I think it's just David Mocek at the moment and Lauren Kiersmakers, who's replacing Tom Lartalou at Race Clutch this week. I think they're the only drivers out on track actually on a lap as it stands, potentially with the black bars next to their name. But let's see how that one works out. Drivers just getting their tyres in the right window to start their final lap as we have about a minute to go.
Yeah, Yannick Simoncic taking a nice, leisurely out lap, trying to keep the tyres nice and cool, keeping them in a decent temperature window, and then go for a very fast, only really probably going for 2 hot laps, as to make the most of the tyre temps, because around Spa, you have to keep the tyres nice and cool and keep them in, as I say, in that nice operable window. So to get 3 flying laps in, you have to have a really fast out lap, which isn't quite manageable, and you're better off sacrificing an extra lap just to actually have a decent, 2-lap run. I think that's what Simoncic is going for. A quarter of a second off pole position, covers the top 6, and in all fairness, a second and a half covering the field is insane around a near 2-minute lap.
Yeah, and just shows you how at this track, even though it's so long, the corner, there aren't actually so many corners or corner complexes as such. So it is actually often one of the ones that's got a little bit closer. Also with the setup, everyone is going to be on as low wings as they can get away with as well. So it's generally a bit of a level playing field as such. And we're seeing here Williams, he's having a better day, up in that 12th place. He's just over a 10th up on this lap so far. Solid first sector and a pretty decent middle sector as well. Just one final braking zone to go. This is where you could lose it. You could be up on your delta, but if you just lock the rears, if you slide it over the bumps here into that final chicane, you can definitely lose your lap time. But out of the final corner, Royal Blue Racing and Matt Williams, where can he put himself across the line? 12th place at the moment. Does he improve? Yes, he does, to 10th.
Not bad. Yannick Brackshock as well. Purple to the middle sector, 29-1 to sector 1. Not the best that we've seen for sure. You can also see Colin Spork on his final flying run. Green to the first, white to the middle. That means he's not improved. Same too for Jake Dennehan. But what can Brackshock do? Into the final chicane. Alex Siebel unable to improve. He stays 5th. Is that going to change? Are we going to see any more improvements? Mitchie Hoyer up into 3rd place. Well done, fair enough. Within 2 tenths of pole, Colin Spork, Jake Dennehan, no changes, but Brackshock gets himself onto that 2nd row as well. Fantastic lap times right at the death of qualifying.
Yannick Simoncic, purple in that middle sector, solid first sector as well. Can he hold it? Sector 3 is pretty much just this final chicane. One braking zone. You can see some of the lockups on the racing line there. One final turn to go, and your 3-time champion out of the final corner, leading the championship this year as well. Can he put a charge here at Spa up towards the front of the field? 3rd place he goes. Half a tenth off that pole position. Burlak has gone up to 4th place. Callas now into 5th. Here's Dennis Jordan, 2nd place in the championship. Can he follow Yene towards the front of the field? 5th place. That's a nice improvement from him. Just shy of 2 tenths off the pole position. Here's Mark Schloter as well, one of the final drivers to come across the line. Is he going to get himself up inside the top 15 or so? No, that's going to be 18th place for him. As it turns out, it's going to be Jake Dennehan getting that pole position, but 1/10 covering the top 4.
Wow. What a qualifying session. Yes, please. If this is what we're looking forward to in the race, then bring it on. We saw Mitchie Hoyer get himself onto, what was it? It was either 2nd or 3rd place right at the end. And now in the end, qualified in 8th place overall. So many improvements right at the end of qualifying. and so close in the lap times as well. Loving the Formula SimRacing World Championship of 2023. And, well, Jake Dennehan back on pole. Could he replicate the success that he had towards the start of the season? And, well, Colin Spork, Yanis Simicic, and Jordan all inside the top 5. We've got all 4 of our championship leaders inside the top 5. I think we're in for a good one, Cam.
We certainly are. And I can't wait to see how this one is going to work out. Of course, the strategy is going to be a big factor. We've often seen a sort of a two-stop strategy with hards being used. But first, actually, we'll go through the qualifying results. Here's Jake Dennehan by 0.02 of a second. Your reigning champion Colin Spork there in second place. Yanis Simicic and Petter Burlak rounding out the second row. So a great day for Alpine Esports. Get themselves all the way up towards the front. Dennis Jordan in fifth place with Sander Callas. That's a much better day for him in sixth place. That's a lot more reminiscent of what we saw from him last year. Jans Brakshock down in seventh place. Michi Hoyer, as you say, Zach, dropping to 8th in the end after jumping up, just showing you how close these lap times are. Yannick Bock and Alex Siebel round out your top 10, but Siebel only a 1/4 of a second back and on the 5th row of the grid. David Mrochek, Matt Williams are on the 6th row with Martin Mergley. That is a solid result from him. Not the best result so far this season, but 4/10 off. He's going to be absolutely loving that one. Zoltjukes and Stavros Mizidis. We've got Mika Hakimi there rounding out the 8th row. Laurent Kiersmakers reserved for Race Clutch in 17th place. Mark Schluter in 18th. Valeriano and Grankvist down in 20th. That is not the day the Grankvist would have wanted. He's normally up well inside the top 10. 21st is Kostas Van Vukas. Demian Skovron is in 22nd. He got podium here last year after those last lap shenanigans. It's going to be a bit more difficult for him this time around in 2023. Cosmo Picciuto, Robin Panzar on your 12th row, and your final row of the grid is going to be Giannis Leonos, your pro driver, reserving for Carlos Martin, and then Jukapeka Lalu for Super Venturi, the final driver today. I don't believe there's any grid penalties or anything like that, so that is going to be the grid for today. And Zach, it's really setting us up well. We've got a championship battle coming. We've got an awesome battle for the win as well. It's going to be quite something, I think, the 44 laps at Spa.
I'm hyped. I'm looking forward to this. Obviously, week in, week out, I'm pumped to get back into the commentary booth for the Formula SimRacing VCO World Championship. But something about Spa today, especially after seeing that qualifying session. Yeah, I'm raring to go, and I'm sure all of these drivers are as well. Obviously, with the tyre strategy wide open, with Slipstream and DRS hopefully keeping everyone nice and close, and plenty of racing action, plenty of overtaking opportunities between now and the checker flag, and also the stakes. I mean, everyone is, the tension that we've got inside that top 5. As I say, we've got all 4 of our top 4 inside that the first 3 rows, which is exactly what we want to see. And it's just a pressure cooker waiting to go, because all of them want to make the most out of today, gain some points relative to each other, specifically the likes of maybe Colin Spork trying to bring up a bit of that deficit that he has because of the slow start to the season. And then you've got the likes of Simicic and Jordan, who already have built up that bit of a safety buffer, but still having their own internal struggle for the championship lead. Yeah, plenty of hype surrounding this race, and maybe we could even have an outside shot of maybe a surprise winner.
Yeah, all the big names are up there towards the front, but it's getting to that point in the championship where you have certain people like maybe a Petter Burlak or even Jans Brakshock, if he can put a race together. They don't really have anything to lose now, because realistically they're a bit too far back to challenge for the championship, or even maybe even the podium in the championship. So they sort of just need to go out and do what they can do, and try and get a race win. And that is, those types of people are what in some ways upset the top guys, because they're sort of getting in the way. They're getting some points as such. But of course, every person for themselves when we get out onto the grid, and it's certainly going to be a tight 44 laps of action. We're looking, as we started to mention for the strategy, Zach, it's going to be somewhere towards a 2-stop. We often see sort of 2 hards and a medium, but then where you use those mediums is going to be very crucial indeed, because as ever, the undercut is very powerful.
It is, yeah. We've seen time and time again this season that having that lap on fresher tyres is vital to success. But you also need the longevity in the tyres. We saw with, I think it was the R8G cars potentially back in Montreal, pitting a lap too early, and it really did cost them in the end. And it is that golden mean, and trying to pit sort of in the middle of the two, the undercut and the overcut. That's realistically where the strategy is now. That obviously goes without saying, but you don't want to leave it too long as to completely destroy the tyres, but you don't want to come in too early as to then destroy the tyres later on in the stint. So placing that fast medium stint is going to be vital, and when you come in to in fact change your tyres as well, also going to be very vital. But we're underway for the formation lap, and pretty much unanimous. I think everyone's starting on the hard compound tyres.
Let's remind you of the grid. Jake Dennehan, Colin Spork on the front row with Jane Simicic and Petter Burlak in behind. So basically 4 of the top drivers there up towards the front. And following them as well, Dennis Jordan. So the top 5 are really 5 of the top contenders. Kalas Brakshock and Michi Hoyer round out your top 8 on the grid. But certainly look out for some great battles inside this top 10. Yannick Bock and Alex Siebel round out that top 10 with Darren Rocek and Matt Williams for Royal Blue in 12th place. Remember, points go all the way down to 20th, so points are on offer for all these drivers. Mergeli and Jux inside your top 7 rows, with Zaidis and Hakimi inside your top 8. And the points for these positions is pretty much 1 point per position. So if you make up 5 places, that is 5 points. Kismakers, Schluter, Valeriano and Jan Grankvist round out your top 20, and he would be your final points winner if we get to the end of the race like this. Van Bucas and Skovron just outside that top 20, with Prosciutto and Robin Panzer down in 24th. I'm sure Panzer would want to be a little bit higher up, along with his teammate and sister teammates there up towards the front. Leonos and Jukapeka Lalo round out your 26 drivers for today's Belgian Grand Prix here at Spa-Francorchamps, round 6 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship for 2023, powered by VCO. And of course, thanks to Simply Race for the broadcast. Myself, Cameron Roger and Zach Sweeney are your commentators for today. And Zach, what are your final thoughts and predictions as we finish this formation lap?
Oh, don't ask me to predict it. That's a horrible question, Cam. No, I'm not going to predict it. That was an evil laugh. That was the most despicable noise I've heard come out of your mouth, Cam. But yeah, we're in for carnage, we're in for chaos, we're in for a lot of fun along the way. I mean, Dennehan has been the best that we've seen him, especially sort of over the last sort of 10 months or so. I mean, this time last year towards the tail end of the season, before we then transitioned into the sort of the FSR Stock Car Pro stuff, and he was really quick in that, and then progressed into the 2023 pre-season championship, taking the win in that, opening the season off with a win, and has since not been outside of the top 10. Jake Dennehan has come into 2023 a new man, very, very quick, still inside the top 3 in the championship, and with a lot to prove. But he's got Spork, Simicic, Berlak, Jordan all queuing up behind him, ready to put the pressure on as we make our way through the 44 laps here at Spa. And also pole position, we've got a 2-kilometer run from La Source to Lake Om. Being in front with the slipstream being as powerful as it is might not be the best thing.
Yeah, you can definitely go a couple of positions up or down with how the racing is going to go on this first lap. And the first stint looks to be a pretty hard one for all of the drivers, as I think everyone is choosing the hard compound tyres, which is to be expected, with the tyre wear being a little bit higher than drivers would have wanted around this circuit. Jake Dennehan is on the front row of the grid with Colin Spork alongside. Final driver is getting close to the start, as we're seeing. Actually, is that one of the cars rolling back just in front of Jukapeka Lalu at the back of the grid? There they go, get into that grid position, and then the race is going to be ready to start. 44 laps of action, championships on the line. Colin Spork chasing down Jani Simicic at the front of the field, but who is going to come out on top when we get to the end of this race? The Belgian Grand Prix is about to get underway. Jake Dennehan, Colin Spork on your front row. Who is going to get the whole shot down in towards turn 1? Looks like it's going to be Jake Dennehan. Good launch from him. Side by side in towards turn 1 we go though. Colin Spork on the outside, 3-4 wide in the background. Simicic manages to get past and hold on to Petter Burlak in that 3rd place. Might be going for this race lead, actually coming for that 2nd place already. Lots of hybrid being used. Colin Spork down to 3rd.
Yeah, a great start from Jani Simicic though, and now he's got the slipstream of Jake Dennehan as we rise up through Eau Rouge and Radion. Now the Kemmel Straight. We go up towards Lake Com. Who's going to make any major moves? Jake Dennehan, as it stands, able to retain that pole position, but side by side as we run away into the first major braking zone.
Spork, is he going to be coming back up the inside for that 2nd place? Oh, that was very close between the two of them. Championship contenders side by side in towards Malmedy. Spork's entered up the inside there. Almost more contact between the two. Cars are off in the background as well. Here comes Petter Burlak for that 3rd place. Dennehan gets away at the front. In the background, we've got Michi Hoyer. He's jumped up behind Dennis Jordan for that 5th place too.
Yeah, what a start this is. Absolute carnage, absolute chaos. You can see Michi Hoy making up some good progress as well in 6th place. He ran away through Pool 1 for the first time, and, well, the most chaotic start to a Grand Prix, and, well, it's been chaos for all 3 starts here in FSR, both Academy and Pro. Also showed some carnage and chaos, but nothing quite like the World Championship, because the overtakes that we've just seen has been amazing. Great battles and the great teamwork from the Alpine cars.
I think that looked like Alex Siebel was the car without that front wing. That's such a shame for him. He's had a bit of a tricky season so far compared to his teammate, and that is just going down. And is that one of the Valley cars, Mercedes, as well, without the front wing? They're going to have some damage repairs, and of course getting a bit far behind the field after an early pit stop. As we come to finish the first lap, though, Jake Dennehan leads the way. Colin Spork and his teammate Peter Burlak in behind. That is looking very good for them, with Simicic and Jordan rounding out your top 5. Simicic gave it a go, almost had the lead, but he's now down into 4th place, and this is going to be a tricky one now for Simicic. Of course, he's got the 2 teammates who can work together ahead of him. He's got Dennehan as well up towards the front, and Simicic has his championship rival all over the back of it.
Yeah, that's not exactly what Simicic is going to want to be seeing. You can see how close Colin Spork is to the back of Jake Dennehan. Once again, the climb into Les Combes. Jake Dennehan is able to retain the lead. Colin Spork not looking too interested in finding a way past. I think more happy just to sit in the slipstream and use Dennehan to pull him along, maybe break away from the rest of the pack. But it's not quite the early pace that we saw from Spork in Imola, here again in Spa, but unable to really challenge for the race in the opening moments. Maybe more willing to settle in here today. But yeah, Simicic is in a tight spot. It was a really good initial start, but as soon as Spork and Burlak worked their way together to work their way back in front, yeah, Simicic fell his way back down to 4th, and, well, he's got a long road ahead of him if he wants to get himself onto the podium or even the win.
Yeah, just looking a bit further down, Grankvist had a decent start, got up from 20th to 16th place. That's some nice gains for him. Mergely up a position as well, but that might be a factor of Siebel dropping down the way. But I'm still really happy for Mergely being up right inside the pack this time around, up behind Mika Hakimi, who's also having a decent day so far, chasing down the burst of Mocek. But let's have a replay and see what happened up a bit further back. This is all contact there. That is Jux and Alex Siebel. They got caught on each other, and on the rejoin, that might be Mergely actually getting involved as further contact is being made. Cars sliding all over the road, and unfortunately the front wing is already lost. Mercedes got caught up in that too.
That is a shame for Alex Siebel, who again has been showing some good strengths so far this season. Not quite able to get himself onto the podium, but a very consistent shout when assisting Scuderia Ferrari Esports in their fight with Burst Esports next few for the Teams Championship. But yeah, that's going to be a huge dent considering Simicic and Mocek are both inside the top 10, and yeah, Siebel still in this race, but with a huge setback on his way to maybe scoring some points. All he has to do is get inside the top 20, but that's going to be easier said than done, in a very unfortunate way for him to start this race.
Yeah, DRS in effect. Colin Spork to the front. Jake Dennehan got down into 2nd place. I would presume was quite a nice easy overtake. It is quite a short DRS zone this race compared to some others, but it is still very powerful indeed. Matt Williams down to 16th place. He's lost 4 places now from the start. Grankfist gets up inside the top 15, just sliding his way through Raj as well, just showing you how they are pushing at this moment in time. But of course, all the drivers, as you mentioned, are on the hard compound tyres, at least in the front pack, not the drivers who hit it for damage. Alex Siebel's gone onto the mediums, but yeah, these hards, we are going to be looking for somewhere along the lines of 15 to 20 laps, that sort of range. So don't expect anything too crazy till the latter sort of 5 laps or so when they start falling off. But certainly this is a nice time to make some overtakes if you can.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how hard each of the drivers are pushing at this stage in the race, trying to, maximise their stint, or, trying to push their way throughout the field, whether it's they're going for longevity or for track position in the opening moments. We'll wait and see, of course, in sort of the next 12 laps or so when we get to that window where the tyres will start to ever so slightly drop off. But we've got a good little fight here between Stavros Muzelis and Jukes as well for 24th place, but back to the front, and it's a train all the way through the top 10, even beyond that as well. The DRS really settling these drivers into single file, all aboard the Colin Express.
I wonder if Spork is going to try and do what he did last race, where he absolutely stormed off. You remember A few weeks ago to that Imola race, he won by an absolute country mile and was pretty much just the fastest person out on track every single lap of this race, as the DRS is still coming into effect. A bit further in the back is that Yannick Bock trying to make some moves on Sander Callis. Yes, it is up into that 8th position. That's a nice one for him, just slowly working his way forward. His next opponent is Janos Brakshock, but that is about a second up the road, so he needs to try and get a little bit closer for that one. But certainly this is going to be a tricky one. Let's see how the two burst cars of Simčić and Hoyer and also Jordan go about getting towards the front, because we're starting to see a little bit of a gap form there between Berlak and Simčić.
Yeah, ever so slightly. So Simčić has got to be very careful as to not fall out of the DRS range, because that is dangerous territory at a circuit like Spa with such a heavy reliance on the straight line speed. And if Simčić does fall out of the 7/10 margin, it would mean that he has to use maybe a little bit more hybrid or a little bit more tyre to get himself back into it. And he has already done that. You can see there the gap between Berlak and Simčić now at about a second between the two of them. And well, that is the danger zone for Simčić. And if he drops off that top 3 fight, it's going to be so tough to get back into contention.
Yes, and also, once he loses the slipstream, once he loses the DRS, he's going to have Dennis Jordan all over the back of him. He won't have that defensive measure from the aero effect, so definitely going to be a tricky one for him, as we're seeing Valeriano now on the back of this huge train in towards the bus stop as they try and get through quite nicely. He's got Williams in front of him, and the Italian needs to try and find his way slowly up the order. Not had the best season so far. Best finish of P15 back at the Spanish Grand Prix second round of the season. And Jux continues his battle with Mercedes, and this might be one to look out for a little bit later on. If there's some incidents, they might be able to sneak some points.
Yeah, that is true. Again, points go all the way down to P20, which means, effectively only 6 people are going to be missing out, which, is good odds if you want to finish inside the points. And also once you're inside the top 20, as Cam said a little bit earlier on, it's 1 point per position until you get to the gap between 5th and 4th. So with each place is 1 extra point, so you can climb your way forward. And with incidents, you can sort of bet there's going to be at least 1 or 2 along the way, a couple of mistakes as well to bet on. And if you can nail the strategy and have a consistent race, at the very least, obviously, maybe a bittersweet ending for some. Maybe if Alex Siebel can bag a couple of points, not going to be where he would want it to be, but it's better than nothing. And it definitely goes to show the determination and the perseverance that champions need to have, especially if Scuderia Ferrari Esports want to take the crown in the team's championship.
There's Olshuk's having a DNF there, unfortunately not getting involved in that battle. So that's another free position for Siebel. But yeah, you're right. This is not and that was another reason why the points got increased to 20 actually last year, was to give those drivers a bit lower down, so a bit more incentive to keep going. Certainly quite an important measure. As we see that gap has closed up between Simčić and Berlak at the front, as it starts to just increase slightly ahead to Jake Dennehan in that second place. Spork is not absolutely romping away with this, so definitely looks to be a bit more of a competitive race here at Spa compared to what we had at Imola, but you never know how this one is going to go. There's always that element of, is he saving, is he not pushing to the fullest, but we'll have to find out a little bit later. Did win this race last year, of course, so very confident around this. Is Jake Dennehan going to have any sort of return back towards the front? Not this lap though.
Yeah, not quite able to pick Colin Sport once again. Maybe again, as I say, happy just to sit behind Sport for the time being, save some battery, save some tyre, and just cruise along with the wave. But that's a dangerous game, especially when it's Colin Sport. And like we saw in Imola, he really had he got out the gates really quickly from, I think he started on pole position last time out, and he just got out the gates quickly, used a lot of hybrid, used a bit of tyre as well, and then just grew the gap. And then, as we've been saying around Spa, with how strong the slipstream and the DRS is, if Colin Sport can get away from Dennehan, he's just going to run free with it. And that is not what Dennehan, Berlak, Simčić, Jordan all want at all. So if I was Dennehan, maybe it would be worth putting at least a little bit of pressure on, just to make Colin Spork look in his rearview mirror a bit.
And I wonder what Spork is thinking at this time. He does have some friends behind him. He's got that bit of a gap, and we know this could be an important factor for the championship we were mentioning in terms of how the points are working. If Simčić finishes on the podium every race, then it's still in his hands. But if he's going to finish like this in 4th, maybe Dennis gets him in 5th place, that could be very big, and some points gaps coming coming in quite a bit bigger. So these couple of drivers of Denhan and Burlak getting in between Spork and Simicic could be very, very important later on. As once again, we're seeing these gaps sort of ebb and flow. Burlak just caught up by a couple of tenths. Simicic just dropped off by a couple of tenths in those gaps. So I wonder if some push-to-pass games are being played. But definitely that gap is growing between 3rd and 4th.
It is, and as we touched on, it is dangerous for Simicic. Jake Danahan looking quite close to the back of Colin Spork. Is he vying to go for the move again with a reduced slipstream? You can see the background, actually, Simicic under a ton of pressure as Dennis Jordan pulls his way alongside, and Simicic is forced to tuck in behind his championship rival, Dennis Jordan, crucially getting himself ahead of the 3-time champion and current championship leader, and also current championship rival as well. Dennis Jordan making some huge moves and making the most of that growing gap.
Yeah, what a championship we are having in 2023. We've got Simicic leading the way, but he's now behind both of his rivals, and as it stands, losing those points, which is going to be very crucial. He would lose 14 points to Spork if they finish like this. Oh, there's been a huge crash on the track map there at Malmedy. We've seen that one of the Netrex cars, and then it's 27s, that Van Vukas, he's gone around. I can't quite see the other cars involved. Maybe Leonos as well involved in that one. Maybe Damien Skovron. So something's happened up there at Lake Malmedy. A bit further down, some gaps starting to form at the lower ends of the field as well. So a few mistakes creeping in here for some of the drivers.
Yeah, which is, understandable as the tyres ever so slightly start to drop off a little bit. The track temp, 33 degrees Celsius is going to start to bake the tyres a little bit. Spa isn't exactly the easiest track on tyres either. Let's take a look as to what's happening though. It's down towards the back, and you're right, it was into this complex of corners here. Leanos on the outside, forced off the road, over the
two crashes.
Well, we've double whammy.
Oh, that is a huge hit for the two Netrex sister teams as well. Leonos came in and unfortunately hitting his sister teammate there. I mean, he absolutely straight-lined that chicane, but there was already a previous incident with Skovron involved. Skovron has DNF'd from this race, unfortunately, because of that as well. So Van Vukas and Skovron side-by-side into Lacon. They caught each other, spun around. Then at the same time, unfortunately, the sister Netrex getting involved up towards Lacon. And potentially Simicic getting moved. But let's just see quickly. This is Leonos. He's going over. The crash has already happened, and I don't know if I want to say this is his fault or not, but it's certainly very unfortunate timing. But he did cut the chicane quite a lot.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time, and it was an early bailout, but I suppose it's there for a reason. The anti-cut curbs are there to slow you down, and you can't exactly predict there's going to be a crash in front of you. And then he basically just used his teammate's nose cone as a bit of a ramp, launched himself into the air, and a very unfortunate end to all of their races. Not great at all, but as I say, wrong place, wrong time, and not exactly something you can easily react to, especially when the car's already unsettled and, going at a decent speed. It's hard to slam on the brakes, especially when you have to factor in the thinking distance as well as the stopping distance. Yeah, I don't think he stood a chance.
Yeah, very unfortunate, but that is the way racing goes sometimes, and you just end up in an unfortunate situation. It's racing, it's sim racing, all the same. Or here's a good side-by-side, yet front wheel gets caught. Can't quite see exactly the amount of space there from that speed, but definitely very tight and not much space being given by either driver there. And unfortunately, when you lock that front to rear wheel, there's not much you can do, and both cars go spinning.
Yeah, not really. Again, it's just a difficult predicament to be in, not one that many drivers would like. Look at that gap between Petter Burlak and Dennis Jordan. That is visually huge, and then also about 3.5 seconds between 4th and 3rd. And well, Jordan got himself ahead of Simicic, maybe in an effort to try and go for it. And now Spork gives up the lead of the race. Oh, could he be struggling a little bit, wanting to use Denahan as a bit of a tow truck?
Well, one thing you can do when you're in that slipstream with the DRS is you can save a bit of your hybrid push-to-pass battery, and then obviously once you have more than your rival, you can then deploy more, get past. So if they sort of work together, they could do a couple of laps each way and save a little bit, potentially. Or maybe this is just Denhan thinking he's going to start pushing towards the front. I would say this is too early to be any sort of starting to push for an undercut, because we're not even to the 10th lap of the race, unless they are going for a 3-stop, but I do doubt that today with how the tyres are working. So maybe this is just Denhan showing that he's got some pace in that car, trying to pull those two Alpines away. And as you say, the top three absolutely romping off into the distance. Simicic struggled to keep up, and now Jordan is as well in 4th place.
Yeah, so the top three really delivering the heat. Denahan, Spork and Burlak up there as well. So Alpine having a fantastic day in the office. Of course, Burlak, a very strong driver, is sort of trying his best to latch on to the rear end of this fight. And surely Spork, I mean, obviously, he's going to be selfish, right? You can't blame him for wanting to be selfish in this. He needs to be winning essentially every race from now to the end of the season to even stand a chance at getting himself back into championship contention, especially when Jake Denahan is one of the drivers ahead of him in the championship. But also that team dynamic. I mean, they're both up there, and with Slipstream being as important as it is, you talked about having that sort of that swap around game. Maybe if Burlak can get onto the back of Sport, they can team up on Denahan a little bit and then do that tactic themselves.
Is Sport going to come straight back? He's very close up the hill as he opens up that DRS. As we get onto the straight section, he gets a bit closer, but he actually closes that DRS early. He's going to sit in behind now for a few laps, and maybe just letting Jake run out towards the front as we're seeing some more moves. Bot goes up into 7th place, head of Brackshock. We've seen Mergely get up inside the top 10, so some good moves being made for some drivers who started in the midfield.
Yeah, we did say that drivers are going to be able to carve their way forward, again helped by the overtaking capabilities of Spa, the push to pass, the DRS and all the slipstream as well, everything involved. And the fact that everyone's nice and close together means that you get in front of one, try not to lose too much time, then try and get yourself ahead of the other as well. So some moves being made, but yeah, also some drivers ever so slightly going backwards. But it's all about longevity. It's not a 10-lap race, it's a 44-lap race, not even a quarter of the way through. So those that have gone down, don't necessarily count them out just yet, because there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, there certainly is. Lap 10 of 44, and he's just being ticked off, close to getting onto that lap 11. Anyone sort of 3-stopping will start to think of pitting, but I do think we're going to be seeing some 2-stops, or pretty much all 2-stops I should say. So we should see another sort of 5 laps before we start opening that pit stop window, and things will start to happen. Hakimi here down in 16th place. He's got Keersmakers behind him, so not the day for race clutch, because Panzer are also down in 19th place. But their sister team Alpine are up the front, leading the way with Sport Burlak in that 2nd and 3rd place. Mrocek here in 9th. He's actually he's having a pretty solid season so far. The only race he had a bit of an issue with was Barcelona, where he ended up finishing 13th, but he was spun around and had contact on the first lap. Apart from that, it's been 3rd, 4th, 4th and 7th, so pretty solid from him, and at the moment in that 9th place.
Yeah, Davin Mrocek, of course, coming off the back of his Formula E Accelerate Championship, as Janis Brackshop tries to go for a move on Janis. Oh my goodness me, so close to contact. And that's drivers by TX3 car, just discouraging the move to Brackshop by moving his way to the inside there, and well, close to contact, especially at that high speed, because at that stage on the straight, you are essentially topping out, and yeah, difficult to react, and could have been a huge crash if things went wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't like the biggest move in the world, but it's just sort of where the proximity of where Brackshot was. That was very close between the two drivers, but it seems to have ended well. So let's let's see how that works out. So yeah, that is certainly something that we need to see. This seems like it's going to be a bit of a battle opening up as the race goes on. Bock has actually made some good progress. He's sitting about 1.5 seconds behind Hoyer as it stands, and will be definitely trying to get on that battle, because it's sort of turned into a three-way battle at the front. Denahan, Spork and Burlak, and then another three-way battle of Jordan, Simicic and Hoyer as we start lap 12 of the race. And once again, Brackshot getting closer and closer in towards that final chicane. But Bock, I think, will have the pace to hold on for this one for now. And we come back to the battle of Keersmakers. He's got himself past Hakimi. He's worked his way up through, at some point on this lap, through to that position. He's got Valeriano up behind, who is still sitting behind Matt Williams, was actually dropped off just a little bit. So Keersmakers on his return to the World Championship might be able to get himself a few more points. Of course, raced for Edge Esports last year. they are sort of no more, but with Kissmakers moving to Alpine and Race Clutch, along with a couple of other people, they've certainly had a very good off-season, improving themselves, and Kissmakers doing a lot behind the scenes there with the sort of the engineering, with the setup style of stuff, and he would have been practicing, so he definitely would have been up to speed already and will know exactly what to do with this car. So a very good stand-in for Lartalu, who unfortunately is missing from this race so far. And just noticing that the DNFs did continue, so Skovrov, Van Vukas and Leonos, they all DNF'd after that crash up at Lake Common. Zach, that's a shame to see 3 cars getting taken out from one bit of silly contact, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think Skowron and Van Vukas maybe could have gotten away with it on their initial contact. It was because also, unfortunately, Giannis Lianos went off the circuit, cut across the track and then hit into them. I'm not saying it was his fault or anything like that. There was no malice or intention to it. It was more just a case of, as we said earlier, wrong place, wrong time. That then, you know, really did exaggerate the problem more than it needed to be and put them all out of contention, all with a lot of damage that won't be repaired in time, especially with it being a long lap to get yourself back to the pit lane and things like that. So yeah, not great for them at all, and something that again could have been very very easily avoided, but it's racing, and well, those are the risks you have to carry.
Absolutely, and as the race progresses, we're getting towards 1/3 distance already, and we're still continuing to see Dennehan lead the way, Spork and Burlak inside your top 3. They are remaining very close though. Spork, I think, is just using Dennehan at this moment just to save a little bit, I would assume, because with what we saw from him in Imola was he was so confident of his pace that from that first lap already, he just bolted away from everyone, got that couple of seconds in the first lap, and then just absolutely set lap after that. But here, it seems he's got a bit more competition, maybe not quite feeling the same today, but of course still in the top 3 and pulling away from the midfield.
Yeah, getting himself further and further ahead, and oh, just look at that. It's the top 3 are just so insanely quick. So I don't know what Alpine have fed Spork and Burlak for breakfast, but it's working. Jürgen van Bergen has definitely sort of given these guys the pep talk today, and they are flying out in front. Lap 13 of 44, Jake Dennehan as well doing a brilliant job. Here is Jane Simoncic still on the back of Dennis Jordan, but for whatever reason, he's not what we usually see. I mean, I'm surprised to say this, but his qualifying pace looked better than his race pace. So far, he's been struggling.
Yeah, it certainly has. Yeah, it's definitely been a tricky one, but the margins are so small though. That's one thing that you always have to remember. The margins are so small, and even though we're seeing a few drivers sort of go up and down here and there, especially in qualifying, if you looked how close it was, a couple of tenths each way, and you're gaining or losing 5 places. And when it gets to that sort of level, you can easily have a better or worse race. If you look at, for instance, Bradshaw down that 7th place, if he stuck on pole, you know, he would have been in this battle at the front as well, but he wasn't, so he's now dropped down in that 7th place as it stands. We go back to Alex Siebel, 22nd place, getting close to Mazidis. He was a little bit far back actually after their pit stop earlier, so he's caught up, trying to get 21st place. Yeah,
and then he'll only be 1 place off points. 1 place, but, you know, just over 20 seconds. No biggie for Alex Siebel. I'm sure he'll be able to claw his way forward. A long race, of course, and plenty of time. And, well, hopefully he's got all the motivation in the world. Probably hasn't after his incident earlier on. But if he has got anything, he needs to muster it all up and scrape some points here today. As we are very much towards the tail end of this championship already. I mean, it was a slightly later start in the year going for it, towards the end of May and things, but ever since then it's just been flying its way through. We are already into the second half of the season. We've got Spa, Monza, Suzuka and Sao Paulo to round off the season, and well, what a season it's turning into be, Cam, because it's just amazing with how close it's been. We've got, you know, the potential for maybe, you know, 4 drivers in with a shout of the championship. It's phenomenal, and again, another year where the FSR World Championship is one of the best.
Yeah, I'm excited to see actually how this season is going to end, because at one point a couple of races ago I thought Simoncic was going to start running away with it, but then we've had the resurgence of Jordan. We've then had Spork now have his say, and I wonder if by the time we get to Brazil we're going to be in with a handful of points separating those drivers. That is what we want to see, the championship go all the way down to the wire. And I should say just 3 races left after this one. So a total of only, what's that going to be, 120 points left up for grabs. So up towards the front though, Colin Spork, he gets a huge run on Jake Dennehan, already overtaken before we open the DRS at that Marshall post. And that is a huge potential turning point in this race. Is lap 15. That's what I was mentioning, potentially for some pit stops to start happening. So let's see how this one works out. Is this going to be a push for a bit of an undercut, a bit of an earlier pit stop for Spork, or is he now just going to start running away with it either way?
Well, we'll soon find out. Martin Maguli trying to put in a bit of pressure on Mark Schluter just ahead of him. Again, having a really strong race. I know we touched on it earlier, but Maguli having a strong race for VCO Esports, and potentially even within a shout of a top 10, which would be huge. For him, of course. I mean, so far this season, his best result is 19th place. So, yeah, strong race here in Spa. And again, just going to show that, even if you've maybe had a poor season up until this point, the pace is incredibly close, such a competitive field, and, well, he's fighting well within the upper midfield.
Yeah, certainly decent race so far. And I wonder if Spa is going to give us some exciting results a little bit later on. A couple of drivers jumping up on the way here or there. We are missing a couple of drivers there. Obviously, the full grid would be 30. The 2 R8G cars, they are not here, but we did miss them last race as well. Missing one of the Visceral cars as well. I'm trying to work out the other driver that we're missing. I think it might be one of the Netrex cars as well is missing. So unfortunately just a couple of drivers, which is why there's only 26 out of the field. So that helps a couple of the drivers a bit lower down, a few free positions, as we see David Mrocek in this battle. So it's really three-way battles up towards the front, Mrocek on the back of the third of those.
Yeah, we're setting ourselves into a nice few pockets of triplets. We've got Spork, Dennehan, Burlak, Jordan Simic, Hoyer, and now Brackshot, Bock and Mrocek. Into the pit lane comes Lauren Kiersmakers and completely overshooting his box. Wow, he's missed it by 1.5 boxes. There's overshooting your box, and then there's that.
I think he just didn't see it, to be fair. With that one, I mean, he was sort of, when he sort of retired as such at the end of last season, he was saying how he was a bit of an older gentleman, let's say. He's been around sim racing quite a while, and that was sort of one of the reasons for giving up the full-time racing as stuff. I mean, I remember him sort of back in the results of like 2007, 2008, that sort of time. He's been around a long time, but I think that was just not quite seeing the pit crew. As we come back towards the front, Spork has got out a couple of tenths there maybe, but not really that much. Dennehan and Burlak, they are staying with as we're on to lap 16 now. How long are they going to go on these hard tyres?
We'll wait and see, because obviously the longer they can go on their 2 hard stints, the more they can essentially push when they get to the mediums. They're not going to have to worry so much about conserving them, and they can utilise that softer compound rubber. I mean, that's if they go 2 consecutive hard stints. They might split it up with the mediums in the middle. We don't yet know until they come into the pit lane. Maybe one of them is going to go for a faster middle stint to try and pull out a bit of a gap, and then hope that they can hang on towards the end on the slower hard stint. We will find out probably in due course within the next lap maybe or so, but it's actually right now, because into the pit lane comes Spork and Dennehan. Burlak stays up for another lap.
Yeah, sharing pit boxes between teammates, so Burlak was so close, he didn't really have much option. He would have either had to go a lap early or a lap late. Oh, Dennehan missed his pit box there by about a metre or so as well. He's still just on the very edge of it. Oh, that's a very tight release. That's losing some time for Dennis Jordan coming into the pit lane as well. So that's a bit unfortunate for Jordan, because if Dennehan had made his pit box, he probably would have been held up there by a couple of tenths. But that is how racing goes. Spork will have a nice gap towards the front, but Burlak might actually jump Dennehan with that time loss.
Yeah, that's huge. And again, one of those, the most trivial things, and things you wouldn't probably even give a second thought, but missing your pit box. It's then overshooting it, realising you've overshot it, then having to put it into reverse, go backwards, stop, hope that it's then in the right place again, and then start doing the service on the car. You can lose, a good second or so, and it has gone the way. Jake Dennehan losing about a second on Colin Spork, which is going to be massive in a race this close. Petter Burlak trying to make the most of some very old hard compound tyres, but whatever little is left, he's got to use, because now is crunch time, and this could mean an Alpine 1-2.
Yeah, certainly could. Just looking at the last lap time of 50.0 from Burlak, that's still some pretty decent laps. Simic did get into the 49 to 49.8 on the last one, but also seeing 50.0s from Bock and Actually, that's about it. Loads of people getting up into the mid-50s, so still good pace from these drivers who've stayed out. So, of course, the outlap on newer hards is going to be quicker, but that might still be some decent pace to hold on and at least have a battle with Denahan when we get to the end. You would assume Balak is going to just do a one-lap overcut just by the nature of him being too close to his teammate. Yep, coming into the pit lane now is the number 97. And of course, drivers in behind. We've got Simičić, we've got Michi Hoyer as well. They're not too far behind. Jake Denahan, he is the one to look out for. He's caught back up to Sport though. Probably used a bit of that push to pass. Yeah,
probably so. Again, just to get himself into the slipstream, and then he can worry about things. In and out, once again, you can see also Simičić, Hoyer both into the pit lane. Marechek and Bot also making their way down pit lane. Through turn number 1, it'll be the shorter run for Berlak, but he's also got to get himself up to speed, and look at the power of the undercurve. Wow, that is huge. A good couple of seconds swing there, and well, Berlak has got his work cut out for him in this second stint. Only a 1-lap difference, but well, a good couple of seconds.
Yeah, I think these two have been pushing hard on their outlap as well, especially Denahan to close that gap. I mean, you saw the gap he had coming out of the pit lane, really lost out, but had to regain that margin. Putting the pressure now on Spork, but Berlak there, unfortunately losing out by nature of actually being too close to his teammate. The irony of that is quite funny. We actually see Gianni Simičić on the medium compound tyres. He got jumped by Dennis actually in that pit stop cycle because he did just get ahead before the pit stops, but now he's on those medium tyres, so this is his fastest stint, and he now needs to try something to get past the Ferrari driver and try and pull up the road, because of course Jordan will then go to the mediums and be faster at the end of the race. Yeah,
pivotal stint for Gianni Simičić. He's gone for the medium sandwich with hard compound bread in the form of his 2-stop race. He's in 5th place, and as you say, needs to maximise track position and moving his way forward. And well, it's pivotal not only for this race but also for the championship as well, with how close it could be. I mean, as it stands, yes, he's got an 11-point gap to Dennis Jordan, but with the resurgence of pace from Denahan, Spork, and Jordan having a good race here as well today, he needs to be on top form, needs to, if he can, scrape a podium today. I don't quite think that's going to be possible, but he needs to at least be ahead of Jordan and maximising his points all. And, well, he needs to nail that medium stint in order to do that, but also make sure that he's not pushing too hard to force him to drop off too soon. And then he's got to push like crazy in that final stint to keep Jordan behind, if he's able to get ahead.
Yeah, very, very difficult ones. As I see, Mika Hakimi has DNF'd from the race a lap ago as well, so he's had some sort of issue. He was having a pretty decent day, wasn't he, Zach? Unfortunately, that is not going to be the race for him actually, though. Back to the front, is Jake Denahan going to have any sort of move here? No, Spork is just definitely using a bit of that push pass to defend, and it won't be any sort of move for Jake this time around. But yeah, for Hakimi, that is such a shame. Amazing driver, getting a lot better as the races go on.
Yeah, he has been. We even touched on, before the broadcast, talking with Mike Yao, of course, our production crew with his association with Rabham, and loving the fact that Mika Hakimi has been doing decent, considering he's not really specialising in single seaters or anything like that, and has had a really steady progression in terms of his improvement over the course of the season. And I'd say today, of all days, has been his best chance of a top 10 yet. I mean, he was looking decent at Imola, but couldn't quite muster up it. But he's been towards, solid in the middle of the midfield. And on his day, like today, could have well been a top 10. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, he's going to have to call it a day and DNF. But he shouldn't take it. He shouldn't, let it bring him down, because he's been a stellar driver. And to fight, even to get a point in the Formula SimRacing VCO World Championship, especially 2023, that's an achievement. And so, he's competing and he's doing well and still improving. So, yeah, one DNF I don't think is gonna change that.
Yeah, you're right. We've got a very competitive season this year with just the amount of drivers. Let's have a look for Hakimi coming through P1. Oh, just too much curb. And that, unfortunately, we see this in slow-mo, because that is going to be a huge hit barrier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that car is completely toast. 3 wheels on his wagon, wings gone. And yeah, unfortunately, just going a little bit too wide in that mid part of Huon. It can catch you out very, very brutally, as we saw there.
Yeah, that was... well, he just merged into the barrier. He hit it at such high speed. Huon, a very fast corner. We said in qualifying how you are teetering on the edge of grip, and one small slip, one small snap, and it is essentially game over. You are a passenger at that point. Incredibly hard to save it. and yeah, Mika Hikimi unfortunately falling victim to the double apex left-hander. Now into Lake Palm, it's Michi Hoyer on the back of his Burst Esports teammate. Of course, they are two different entries. We've got Burst Esports Next View and Burst Esports Simplexity. Simoncic for Next View, Hoyer for Simplexity, but both for Burst Esports, both raced together for a long time as part of Burst Esports, and are both teaming up, I suppose, on the back of Jordan. However, Simoncic needs to be making moves soon, and I have to say I'm impressed with both Jordan and Hoyer's pace on that hard compound tyre.
Here's Leonos coming into the pit lane with no front wing. He was one of the ones who DNF'd after that crash earlier with Van Bucus and Scovron. There is Van Bucus actually coming into the pit lane. And yeah, we've been told that actually some smoke's going to come out of his engine, so he probably had so much damage that maybe he actually killed the engine somehow doing that, which is not good.
Stationary for so long.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't actually stationary for that long, but maybe he was just running really close radiators. We did see this in especially the Academy race earlier. A lot of drivers smoking their engine and blowing it up, because of course, being such a high-speed track, you want to close off your ducts, your brake ducts, your cooling ducts as much as possible to go as fast in a straight line and have less drag. If you close them too much, you don't get the cooling, and then your engine expires.
Yes, very prematurely, and when you're sat stationary as well, you're not getting any external airflow into the engine either, which isn't great for the engine, let's put it that way. It'll overheat and then, like we saw in the Academy race, turn itself on fire and go kaput. And I think that's been a similar case that we just seen there, but we're back to the front anyway, and you can hardly see Jake Denahan as to how close and how perfectly matched he is to Colin Spork as he runs his way up into Lake Com. Still the top two fighting away, and Berlak, unfortunately, by going that one lap extra, his burden in the first step was the fact he actually matched Colin Spork too well, that they couldn't come in on the same lap, which, yeah, has meant that this has turned into a two-horse race. Well, what do we think is going to come over the course of the second half of this race? Lap 21 of 44. Colin Spork leads from Jake Denahan, and it's a world champion versus the up-and-comer in the form of Jake Denahan. And well, we've got two sort of, I suppose Colin Spork in essence is still an up-and-comer considering he's only sort of 18, but he's done so much in such a short time. But both of them, maybe with a lot of years of experience yet to come, leading the way in one of the most competitive Formula SimRacing World Championship grids that we've seen for a long time. And they lead the way 3 seconds clear of Peter Berlak with a lot of strategy and still half the race to go.
Yeah, so Spork started, I believe it was in 2020. He was teammates of Liam Duval, who's obviously in RHG now, in the GPVWC Super Lights. So the second championship there in that season. In 21, I think they moved up to Super League, which is the top tier there, then came into the World Championship as well with Edge halfway through the season. But then it was fast in a few races, but never really had the pace for the win. But then by 2022 went, of course, to sort of Netrex / Unicorns of Love, and really just had a solid, like the most solid season you could have. He was so consistent, really put it to the Red Bull Racing drivers of Dennis and Alex Siebel at the time last season, and now after his basically his fourth season properly, of course he's had showings in Le Mans Virtual for Alpine as well and some other competitions. He's been working his way up, and now he's really shown himself to be a strong and a competent driver in multiple forms, and definitely a one to look out for the future indeed. As we've seen that battle's actually changed around a little bit. Mocek has got past Brakchok, he's got himself up into that 8th place. Mark Schluter is actually on the back of them as well. He's made that into a 4-way fight, but Bot and Co haven't been able to catch up to this battle that we're seeing, has been led by Jordan with Simoncic and Hoyer behind.
Yeah, Simoncic still unable to make much progress on Dennis Jordan, which is a shame for him, trying to maximise his medium stint. And if he can't get ahead of Jordan over the course of this stint, or at the very least get ahead and build a gap, it's going to spell disaster for his final stint. But I suppose with how well Jordan and Hoyer holding up on the hards, maybe there's not too big of a difference, and Simoncic can hold and stay with them anyway. Don't know what's going to be the case, but in essence the fundamental choice for Simoncic is to get in front and try and go. But I suppose with how close this train is, if he does get in front, all Jordan's going to do is sit in a slipstream, sit in his DRS and stay with him anyway. So Simoncic is very much stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one, maybe looking to go for the move into the bus stop chicane, but still not able to find a way past.
Yeah, I wonder how this is going to work out. Simicic has sat there for a long time now, so surely he's saved up his battery quite a bit compared to Dennis. But Dennis, we know, is a smart cookie. He sort of engineers himself as well. He can do a lot of thinking whilst driving, so he'll definitely be knowing exactly the situation with his battery and how that is going to work out a bit later on in the race. Of course, you don't want to use it too much now, as then you'll spend the midpoint of the race saving and you'll lose a lot of time from that. So you've got to be very careful how you're deploying your battery. But Simicic in behind, not looking like he's really going to use these medium tyres, but what he will do is he's going to have a shorter stint now, so he's going to get a bit of an undercut on Dennis for that final pit stop.
That's true. And we saw how strong it was with Peter Burlak literally just now running in no man's land relative to the top 2 and the rest of the top 10, because he just went out that extra lap, lost so much time. So if Simicic can get that undercut, build a bit of a gap and maintain that longevity in the tyres, which we know Simicic can do. He is very much a tyre whisperer, can carve his way through with some good pace and some good conservation as well. But it is going to be tricky for him to get any more than 4th, but he has to sort of at least try and get the most out of this race, hope that Burlak maybe has a mistake to get himself onto the podium. It's going to be very tough for Simicic, and well, I'd say he's almost guaranteed to lose at least a couple of points in the championship, and he'll still have the lead, I reckon, relative to Jordan, because obviously there's not really much Jordan can do either. But yeah, I think that 11-point lead is going to take a hit.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. Fortunately, though, if it's just one place, that isn't so bad. But I think the real factor they do need to worry about is Sport. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's going to be 14 points gained already, and that is really going to start closing it down. It's 37 points, so that will make it a bit of quick maths, but that'll make it 24. No, that is some bad maths right there. 23 points it will be with 3 races to go. So then Sport will only need basically 8 points in each of the races, which would be a win if Sport can then win the final 3 races, and Yerne on the podium, even 3rd place. That won't be enough. So it's already starting to get close, and Simicic needs to start finding out how he's going to get back onto the podium and back to potentially winning ways for the final races of the season.
But I suppose that's also with a best case scenario for Colin Sport, which would see him win the rest of the season, and with it take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins of a 9-round championships. Which, to be fair, it's not impossible. He could do it, but it is going to take a perfect scenario. Colin Sport not having any issues, not having a slow day, not getting himself into any incidents, no technical difficulties. None of that, right? There is going to have to be an ideal world for Colin Sport and a not so ideal world for Simicic and Jordan. Still doable. Again, we could still see some shake-ups, and honestly, I'm hoping we do, because imagine we could have Simicic, Jordan, Denahan potentially if he keeps up this run of form as well, and Sport all in contention going into Sao Paulo. Like, yes, please. 2023 has already been a really good year sim racing wise, but we could round it off with a 4-way fight in Sao Paulo of all places as well. I mean, it's been the venue for so many great championship finales in the past, and if it can round off what could be a 4-way fight this year, then bring it on.
Yeah, he's certainly looking very strong, but someone who isn't, Jan Grankvist, DNF. I saw a yellow flag. His car was stopped after Radion. I think he's had a massive shunt at the top of the hill, but he's escaped. He's out of the race, and yeah, he is unfortunately being added to the DNF list. He's had a pretty solid season so far, but unfortunately just dropped off a little bit. He's down in 11th place in the standings, so yeah, he's not going to be coming back from that DNF, at least in this race. But he's got the final 3rd of the championship to go, with Monza, Suzuka and Interlagos, of course, rounding out the final races of the season. Back to Yerne Simicic, and he's starting to drop off Jordan. Are these mediums starting to give up? Is he going to have to pit soon for another set of hards?
Oh, well, how long we got left? We've got, what, let's say, about 19 and a half laps left to go. Oh, he's got to at least get the next 2 or 3 laps on the mediums to make the hards last to a decent point, which is, if he's dropping off already, is going to be tough. I'd say Simicic maybe has taken too much out too early.
Yeah, potentially. Potentially agree with that. But it's also just the hards, they're just a more durable tyre. So as the stint goes on, obviously, if you line up the mediums and the hards, the mediums are a little bit quicker. But as soon as you get to the sort of lap 10, the mediums, if you think about with the curve, the mediums will start dropping below the pace of the hards, and I think that's what we are at. Here's Grankvist at the top of the hill already.
A bit.
Wow, that is a very early. Unfortunately, that is going to be him out of the race. That was very, very early. I was expecting it to be on the exit curb, not on the apex curb at Radio.
Yeah, not often that you see it happen like that. You go over the crest through sort of the left-hander, and yeah, the car, I guess, with the slight elevation change, lifted up. I mean, we were talking about how strong the ground effect is. I wonder if that's what caused it, or the car just got unsettled on the curb. I mean, these guys went through it just fine. Maybe a bit more of a pointy setup, who knows? But look at Jake Danahan being very close. Colin Spork just allowing him through. Is he even going defensive? He might well be. No, he's not. He's allowing Jake Danahan through to retake the lead. And well, it's once again swings and roundabouts between the top two.
Yeah, nice pass for the lead there. Danahan retakes the lead of the race, and after winning that first race of the season in Bahrain, I think this is pretty much the first time since then he's actually had the lead of the race. He's been up there. He's got another podium in Canada thanks to the penalties for the R8G cars. Apart from that, he's had 10th, 7th and 5th. So solid results, but this is the first race since Bahrain where he's really had the pace to go for victory.
Yeah, but when you think about Jake Danahan and sort of his previous seasons in the World Championship and things, you know, before Bahrain, he hadn't even finished inside the top 10. So the fact that he has finished every single race inside the top 10 is huge for Jake Danahan. He's had a really successful season. So the fact that he's now in contention for his second win, his third podium of the season, you know, whether or not he stays in championship contention or not is another thing. But the fact that he is able to boast such success in a grid this strong as well is amazing for him. He's built up a bit of a following as well in terms of a lot of people cheering him on in the YouTube chat and things. So Jake Danahan definitely one of the favourites multiple times that we go into races, and yeah, a perfect opportunity here at Spa for him to take another victory. But he has got the reigning champion, he has got the man at the moment on top form of Colin Spork to fight with, and well, it's not going to be easy, but so far he's risen to the occasion and he is still leading the way.
Certainly has, as Simičić has dropped down to 6th place. Hoyer has got him, but the issue is it going to be too early now? Because then he's just going to struggle in the next stint as well compared to the other drivers. Very interesting how this one has worked out for a 3-time champion, and not the race that he would have wanted. Down in 6th place, as it stands, that would then be 15 points difference. And again, if Spork is to win the race, but of course actually Spork has dropped down a position as well, so it would only be 10 points as it stands that Spork gains on Simičić. Up over the top of Radion Mergley in that 12th place, and Williams is going to get past him even before the DRS opens. As we get onto the straight section, Williams up to 12th.
Yeah, nice movements this way for Williams. He's had a really strong run of form. I mean, he got his way into the top 10 at some point in qualifying, and well, now he's fighting with Martin Mergulli for 12th place. Some decent points on offer for this, but trying to move his way as far forward as he can. But again, with Sander Callis being a few seconds up the road, I think maybe might just have to settle in for 12th place at some point. But you can see Mergulli already himself maybe starting to struggle on the mediums as well, which means, yeah, I don't think we're going to be too far away from those that have gone from medium stint coming into pit lane.
Yeah, it's certainly a disadvantage, I think, with how it's worked out, using those mediums in the mid part of the race, and that's why we see most drivers wait to use their mediums at the end when on the well, obviously you've got no choice by the rules, you've got to use 2 different compounds, but also you have the less weight in the car, the fuel has burnt off, and you can really keep those mediums a little bit better. As it's lap 28 of 44, Danahan leads the way from Spork and Burr. Like those three have been in that formation in one order or another since pretty much the start of the race, and so is the next three, Jordan, Hoyer and Simičić, before we get the next three of Brock and Mocek and Brakshock. So it's 3 sets of 3 for your top 9. Big slide into the pit lane though. Here comes Mergulli. He was one of the other drivers on the mediums, so he's going to go hard to the end, I would assume.
Yeah, there's no way he's getting mediums all the way to the end of this race. It's going to be hard, and then unless he's going for a 3-stop, which I would doubt, because that's going to get him absolutely nowhere in the final moments of this race. Still the fight between the top 2, Jake Danahan, Colin Spork, going toe-to-toe, absolutely loving this battle. They have been able to dispatch away from Petter Burlak ever so slightly. I mean, ever since the pit lane window, the first time they came through with Burlak, as we said, going a little bit longer, has sort of put them out of contention, but running a really strong race for the podium. As you say, Alpine having a really good day in the office in terms of championship points in the teams. And, well, continue on. I mean, look at First Esports next view as well. Simon Mrocek still inside the top 10, and while Jordan is flying the flag high, Alex Siebel down in 19th place, which, to be fair, it's been a long time since we spoke about Siebel. With the recent DNFs and things, he's been able to pick his way into the points.
And that could be crucial for the Constructors' Championship as it stands. First Esports next view, 199 points ahead of Scuderia Ferrari Esports on 181. So 18 points difference between them. Then there's another 35 points back to Alpine. And then there's another 42 back to NX27 and R8G, who are only 1 point apart. So at the front there, that 18-point gap between Burst Esports Nexu and Scuderia Ferrari could be very close by the end of the season. But as it stands, obviously with Simčić and Mrocek up there, they're going to be doing a good job with that. So any point the Siebel can get is going to be important, because as ever, we know that Jordan and Siebel love the Constructors' Championship. Up towards the front though, Colin Sporky's coming back on Jake Denhan towards the front of the field. Lap 29, is this going to be the one? He goes back to the lead of the race. Jake not defending at all, actually. So Spork not able to get past. Denhan must have used quite a bit of the hybrid to defend there.
Yeah, maybe so. War Spork wasn't too interested in going for the move. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, they've not exactly been overly eager of leading this race. So I think Spork, again, just playing the battery game, sitting behind for as much of this race as he can. And then I'm sure in the final stint, when they both strap on the mediums, it's going to be fair game. Gloves off all the way to the end of this race. So we've got a couple more laps yet to go for that. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 if they can stretch these tires a little bit longer than that. Maybe 2 or 3 at least before they get onto the mediums, and then it's going to be a run to the end. I'm sure they're not going to be doing anything different to each other. At least I hope not, with how strong the undercut is. If they come in, I hope they do it in tandem, as that is debris.
Mazidis is in the pit lane, and he's dropped off the back of Siebel. So I wonder if Mazidis has dropped it there, coming through Stablo and Paul Frere sequence of the track at the start of Sector 3. And he will come into the pit lane for some more damage repairs like he had on lap 1, and he will get lapped as Jake Denhan is coming to start lap 30, leading the way from Spork. They put a lap on Mazidis as this battle continues. They've absolutely dropped Petter Burlak in behind, who we haven't really mentioned in this second stint, just not been able to keep up, or probably using that slipstream a bit in the first stint. Well, a pretty nice battle forming up the front here.
It is indeed. It has been for a long portion of this race, up through Eau Rouge and Radion once again as they climb the hill through the Camel Kink in towards Lake Como. Are there going to be any changes between the top two? The DRS flap opens for Colin Spork. He's going to be using potentially a little bit of battery as well. By the time they get to the braking zone, around the start of that curve-ish, yeah, no changes still. So I think they are both holding firm, waiting for that medium stint when the cars are light and the tyres are fresh. And we're going to take a look as to what's happened. Yeah, you were right, Stavros Mercedes
coming through. Oh, wow, he lost that very early, before even the curb. So maybe just lighting up the tyres, maybe trying to get on the push to pass a little bit as well, and losing both wings. It wasn't actually the biggest hit you've ever seen as such, compared to like what we saw with Hakimi, but enough to take off the wings and definitely his suspension damage as well. That looks, wow, huge, 45 degrees of damage there. So that has really hindered Valet's race in terms of position. But for points, there's only 20 drivers left, so anyone finishing from now, or at least getting to the classification mark of 90%, will be getting points today.
Yeah, which is decent for them, because points going all the way back to the top 20 means that if you can get to the end, you are going to get rewarded for it on a day that has seen quite a heavy amount of attrition. It must be said. It is going to be quite an achievement getting all the way to the end. But an unfortunate incident for Stavros Mercedes. It goes without saying. Again, losing it really early, and a slow, painful run in towards the barrier. Bit of a bounce forming for the back end of the top 10. Mark Schluter under pressure from Sander Callis. This is the Grand SimRacing team on the back of Virtual Drivers by TX3. A bit of a gap up to Janis Brakshock, but not quite a massive buffer back to Matt Williams, who is closing the gap and could well be in contention for a top 10 position if things continue. But Sander Callis, a man on a mission for the top 10.
I absolutely love seeing Santa Callis up towards the front. He's always one of those drivers who's been there. Let's see what he does in the later parts of this race. Sport gets close. It doesn't go for the overtake. Just sitting in behind for now, waiting for his opportunity and probably just trying to save as much as he can in terms of the hybrid power. Of course, he was out front for quite a while as well. Just trying to save now and use that slipstream to pull him along instead. And then in the final stint, should be able to have a big go at Jake Dennehan for the lead. Just 13 laps remain at the end, so we are already in position for mediums, but it depends. How long do you want to stay out? How fresh do you want those medium tyres in your final stint?
You want them as fresh as possible, considering that we've seen Simičić and the like on those mediums drop off quite quickly. I'd say you want to stretch the hards as much as you can, use the longevity of them, and then try and make the most of the freshness of the mediums for as long as you can, because when they do drop off, they will. You'll feel it, and well, with how close it's been between Dennehan and Sport, they can't really afford any discrepancy in terms of pace, albeit that Dennehan has been able to get himself ahead of Sport by about 0.7 of a second. Whether or not that's going to stabilise itself, I mean, Sport closing the gap back to about 0.4 of a second now, but yeah. Very, very close between the two of them. They've been down each other's throats for the majority, if not all, of this race up until this point. So, yeah, I'd say they're going to have to match each other in terms of the strategy as best they can, because, well, I suppose it's just not worth the risk. Just, you know you've got the pace on track. Just go up there and do the dirty work rather than trying to be clever in the pit lane and, risking a couple of seconds.
And talking of pit lane, Jerne Simičić comes in, of course, on those medium compound tyres. He's really struggled for the last sort of 5 laps or so. We were talking about him coming in way earlier and trying to actually, he might be going for a double medium in that case. Actually, with 12 laps to go, we're talking about everyone else pitting now, going to medium. So I wonder if that's going to be a double medium strategy for Simičić. We'll see. No, he has gone to the hard, so it could be full push at the end. That's going to be a nice, easy stint to the end for him. In terms of the tyre wear, so he can really push them compared to the other drivers around him who will be on the mediums when they finally come in. So he's going to get the undercut as well. Might be able to get back towards that battle with Hoyer. Maybe Jordan if he has an absolutely huge outlap. Back to the front though, Dennehan is pulled away by a few car lengths in this middle sector. Is this them pushing on their inlap?
Could well be trying to get the most out of it. You can see Colin Spork a bit of a slide as they run their way through the Piff-Paff chicane, just pushing like absolute madmen. Again, both of them on a mission. Whatever little life they've got left in those tyres, they need to extract now, and because they're not going to touch them again for the rest of the race. Build the gap while they can, get as much lap time as they can, get onto the mediums, and then this is where the moves are going to mean something. For the entire race up until now, track position hasn't really meant much between the top two because they know they'll stay together. And now into the final 12 laps, it's going to mean that little bit more. Both continue for yet another lap. So I think we're going to have quite a fast medium stint for these two.
Oh yes, it's a bit of cat and mouse, because especially with the gap that they've got behind them, it's pretty easy for them. They just need to wait. Of course, Sport could go early and get the undercut, but then you have slightly older tyres at the end of the race, and if you want to go full push, then of course you want to have it nice and easy. So let's see, into the pit lane now, Michi Hoyer, David Mrocek coming in. Sport to the front though, is he going to take the lead here? Up the inside, it's going to be into Lecom. He's going to have the position already. Before I thought Dennehan was pushing to get the gap himself, but it's actually Sport pushing. He retakes the lead on lap 33. We're expecting another pit stop from these drivers, but this could be an important overtake at the front.
Could well be turning the tide off the race. I mean, it depends what Dennehan wants out of it. Maybe he just wants to react to what Sport does, not wanting to be the proactive driver of the two, maybe deciding to be more reactive. Who knows what's going through either of their heads. Could this be the turning point? Spork has been sat behind Dennehan for so long. He's got the battery in hand and has now maybe just decided to go for hammer time, pull out a couple of car lengths of a gap, get onto the mediums and run away with things. Waiting for his opportunity, and he's seen now is the time to go for it. A bit of a fight here for the top 5 provisionally between Janus Brakshock and Yannick Bock. They've been keeping each other honest for a good portion of this race, and well, now they continue their fight into the final quarter of this race.
What a race. Bock is having worked his way up slowly, and with Brakshock as well, they've been in front of each other a couple of times. Nice battle in the mid part of the top 10 here. Let's see how they can finish this race, as of course the drivers are getting, those drivers in particular, are getting ready for their final pit stop. Lots of medium runners now out on the track. as we come to this final stop. Of course, 2 different compounds need to be used as Spork and Denahan once again follow each other into the pit lane. So no undercuts or anything. Following strategy, they pit the exact same lap both times around.
Yeah, and well, reflecting each other in terms of the strategy. Burlak once again going a lap longer, but more just trying to secure his podium place more than anything. Dennis Jordan into the pit lane as well. He's, of course, in that fight with Simičić. Look at how close they are as they leave the pit lane. They dip off the limiter, and, well, Denahan's going to be so close, practically sniffing the diffuser of Spork. They climb up the hill through Arusha Radion in towards Les Combes. And who's going to be the one leading the way?
Let's see now who's got the speed in the final stint. Is Denahan going to come back for the lead already? The first out lap already after putting on these medium tyres towards the end. Is Jake going to have anything towards the reigning champion? Is not going to be the overtake in towards Les Combes this time round. He gets close, not enough for an overtake, but the pressure is on the number 1 machine as he needs to hold on to this for just 10 more laps.
Not long left to go at all. I mean, to be fair, 10 laps at Spa is a decently long time, but in retrospect to how long this battle has been, it is into its final stages. Sport going to be looking backwards, and you can see Denahan looking very menacing, but as we say, how much has Sport had in reserve waiting to be used into this final medium stint to break away from Denahan when there's no one else to contest them? It's scary times for Denahan. He needs to be on top form on this fresh and medium stint, otherwise I think he's going to risk Sport running away with it.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be a big battle towards the front. What is Denahan made of? Does he have anything? We are certainly about to find out. It's going to be a fast push to the end. They shouldn't have too many issues on the tyre wear, so they're certainly going to be loving that one towards the end. But here is their teammate Petter Burlak coming up towards the pit lane, and of course he's going to be massively behind. He's already about 5-6 seconds behind, and with another pit stop he's been undercut as well. He'll lose another couple of seconds from that, but it's still going to be a nice 3rd place for Petter coming to the end of this race, sitting in 7th place in the standings, and his best finish is 5th at the Spanish Grand Prix in the 2nd race of the season. So we haven't actually spoken to him in the post-race interviews so far, so it'll be good to hear his questions if he can get towards the end of the race. Of course, he's got to look out for Jordan and co not too far behind, but it looks like they're going to be massively ahead actually, and no worries for that one.
Yeah, not really any troubles for them at all. Into Les Combes once again. Spork leading Denahan. As you say, would be nice to talk to Petter Burlak. Go on.
So talking of Jordan, actually, he's dropped back. Michi Hoyer is leading the train with Simičić just ahead. And actually, I think he's just overtaken Simičić. But Dennis Jordan, he's lost a couple of seconds there. He was ahead of that battle, but he's now only just ahead of David Mrocek as a 4-way battle for what is currently 4th place is starting to open up. So the Ferrari driver, of course, not wanting to lose points to Simičić, has now dropped behind.
Yeah, which is troublesome, but he is on the medium tyres, of course, but he's got about a 1.9 second gap to close to the 3-time champion, who's going to be hoping that Michi Hoyer can drag him along for the ride. And well, what could have been a really good day for Jordan, at least clawing back a couple of points in the championship, might actually swing the advantage to Simičić, who, albeit will be losing a lot of points to Spork and Denahan, will at least be able to extend, I suppose, his championship lead relative to Dennis Jordan in 2nd. But it's still 11 laps-ish left to go. Well, 10 laps really left to go. Now about to be 9 as they cross the line. But yeah, Jordan's still in this. It's just going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of battery, and then he's got to maybe drop back a little bit and save when he's in the slipstream in the DRS, and then go again while he's got that fresh and medium tyre. I'll be honest, I'm surprised the medium stint for Simičić didn't hurt him more than it did.
Yeah, it's actually kind of worked out okay. The issue is he's got the hards now, so he's going to be a little bit slower to the end of the race, and Hoyer's really using that to good effect, getting to the front of that train. Just wonder how that is going to finish, of course, a bit later, because Dennis Jordan will be closing in on those medium tyres. David Mrocek in behind, actually. He's had a bit of a comeback drive from not the perfect qualifying. He is going to be getting closer as well, but this battle towards the front, I think, is opening out. Jake Denahan struggling to keep up with Spork now.
Yeah, I think it's been crunch time for Spork in the recent moments. He's just been flying. And as you said, using what little he had in reserve now to push and try to extend the gap. And if Denahan doesn't act now and get back into the DRS range before we hit the next zone, going up the Camel Straight, could be dangerous for for the Netrace driver, who is on a bid for a second race win of the season, but Spork has been a man so well motivated since Silverstone, so full of confidence, so full of prep and ready to go. It's going to be tough to beat him, especially when the race has been this long. Maybe the mental challenge is getting to Jake a little bit and he's falling off the back a little bit. You can see the gap extending to a second. If he doesn't find something extra now, I think it's Spork's.
Yeah, I think we have seen this over the course of the race. So I think Spork's always sort of been playing the cat and mouse game with him. I think he wasn't fast enough to pull away and dominate like Spa, but he was fast enough that he could just wait for his moment, and it looks like this is going to be the one. So Spork is probably going to have back-to-back victories. Of course, he does need to get to the end. We won't get too far ahead of ourselves, but as the pace is looking, it is definitely in his advantage. Dennehan now out of the DRS because it's 0.7 of a second in Formula SimRacing is the DRS detection. It's not that 1 second mark. So Dennehan will have lost out from that, and unfortunately, once you lose that DRS, it makes it even more difficult to catch up. So let's see how that one progresses in the final stages of this Belgian Grand Prix. 44 laps and 37 are done so far. Peter Burlak is actually, not really looking in his mirrors, but he has got Mitch Hart only 4 seconds back. So Peter not having the pace of his teammate.
Yeah, well, over the course of the first stint, Burlak was matching Spork for the best part of it, but as soon as he lost the slipstream in the DRS, then of course he fell backwards quite a lot, maybe losing a bit of motivation, stuck in a bit of no man's land. And now I'm not saying Michi Hoyer's going to close the gap, but who knows, if there's a couple of mistakes from Burlak and if Hoyer's got a lot of battery in reserve, those mediums still feeling fresh, maybe, just maybe. It's unlikely, but it could potentially happen. We've got Mark Schluter and Matt Williams all battling over 10th place. They've been able to break away ever so slightly from Martin Merguli, about 6.5 seconds back to the VCO Esports driver, but Matt Williams having a really good race, fighting inside the top 10, but of course Schluter for Virtual Drivers by CX3 is going to want to get 2 cars inside the top 10.
Yeah, just having a look at the previous lap. So top 3 drivers, they've got a pace advantage. Top 3 last lap, Spork a 46.4, Dennehan a 46.6, and Peter Burlak 46.7. The 3 drivers behind a 47.3, a 47.5, and a 47.3. So that is about over half a second behind as it stands. So yeah, definitely a good pace advantage for the drivers at the front of the field there, and especially for Spork, he's just set the fastest lap, or as fast as final sector I should say, of the race, and does a 46.5 once more. Very, very fast indeed, although this battle on screen is getting very close. Schluter in 11th and Matt Williams just ahead in that 10th place, still holding on.
Yeah, doing a great job as to keeping himself ahead for now, but Schluter is going to be putting on the pressure. Robin Panzer for Race Clutch down in 16th place, having a bit of a lonely race, it must be said, but has got Sander Callis for company in 17th. Callis not too long ago was fighting for the top 10. This has been happening. Michi Hoyer, Dennis Jordan all in contention. Jordan been able to go for a move on Simoncic, however it's not quite been able to work, and Simoncic is up to 4th. Now, it's getting spicy in this fight for 4th.
Well, what on earth has gone here? So Simoncic was leading at one point. Hoyer got through, and now Simoncic has re-overtaken. Dennis has caught up both of them. Roadcheck is coming in the background as well. Definitely there's a bit of scenes going on here between Burst and their 2 teams, and of course Dennis Jordan getting involved. Let's see a replay of this coming up towards Lake On.
Yeah, well, of course you can see Michi Hoyer not really putting too much of a fight against the Slovenian of Simoncic, and then Dennis Jordan wants to get involved, pulls alongside Hoyer, has a bit of contact, and then Jordan breaks a bit too late, goes across the curb. Simoncic is slow, then Hoyer rejoins, they go side by side through Malmedy. It was quite messy, a little bit of a scruffy fight.
Yeah, it looks like Jordan basically dumped his push to pass on the back of them, was pushing Yerne into the braking zone, and of course in the end decided to cut the chicane. It did actually look like he almost slowed down coming to Malmedy to give those places back. As such, but definitely a really close battle for these drivers. These are important positions though for Simoncic. If he can stay ahead of his sister teammate Hoyer, and then especially his rival Dennis Jordan, that is going to be important points, because the difference between 4th and 6th is going to be quite an advantage. That's 3 points, which could be very crucial by the end of this race. And of course, if Mocek gets involved, there's some even more points. There'll be a 4 points gap. Here comes Michi Hoyer, though, up towards Lecom. He's going to go for the overtake. Doesn't even have the DRS open. Was absolutely sending it. Must have been using a lot of the hybrid system to get past.
Yeah, trying to make the most of what he's got left. But Hoyer into 4th, Simičić down in 5th, which obviously is going to be a couple less points he could be gaining on Dennis Jordan, and also more points that Spork and Bell and Denahan, I should say, are going to be gaining in the drivers. And then also put Simičić in a danger zone relative to Jordan. But I suppose actually if Simičić can sit behind Hoyer and use his DRS, it's going to put him less vulnerable to Jordan. And then if they can back it up and bring David Mocek into the mix, the fact that Jordan is surrounded by the burst boys, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to be Dennis Jordan right now.
Yeah, this is a tricky situation, 3-on-1 as such. We haven't actually seen this, of course, for a couple of years now. Burst have had a couple of teams, but this is really one of the only times I can remember where they've been like so close like this in the race. Of course, the second team for Burst struggled quite a bit last year with Tom Alderming and Robin Panzas. They weren't really involved so much, but this season we've seen sort of Hoyer go down to the second team as such. Mocek come into that first team with Simičić, of course, leading the constructors, so doing a good job. But now Hoyer is also having a great race today, with 3 of them getting involved. Very nice to see for that team, and that's going to be hard for Jordan to come out from. And as you say, if Hoyer can sort of pull Simičić along, that might be able to work, as we've only got 5 laps left, including this one.
Yeah, not long left to go. It's really flown by at this race for yet another round of the 2023 Formula SimRacing VCO World Championship. Round number 6, of course, takes us to Spa, and it's been an absolute banger. Unfortunately, the fight for the lead is dispersing a little bit as Colin Spork starts to spread his wings out in front. But this fight that we've got here going for 4th is, well, it's going to be fireworks in the final moments. We've got the 3 burst cars of Hoyer, Simičić, Mocek all surrounding Dennis Jordan as much as they can, trying to gain as many places as they can, give Simičić the best legs possible in the championship, but also just fantastic races for Hoyer and Mocek. Simičić maybe having a bit of a dip relative to his usual standard, and well, you know you're a good driver when a top 5 is a dip.
That is very true. And if you look at his results in the World Championship, they are certainly very, very good. I don't have the stats on me, but I wouldn't be surprised with the percentage of top 10 finishes for Jani Simičić is certainly very high indeed, and very, very low amounts of DNF rate as well. But that is why he's won 3 championships. He's been runner-up in another 3 championships. That's 6 times he's been really fighting. It's certainly been a crazy one, and that includes him not even attending last season at all, where Spork eventually beat out Alex Siebel at the final race of the season. This year around, though, looks like Spork is going to be winning the Belgian Grand Prix for a second year, I should say. But this battle, once Hoyer looked like he pulled away in the middle sector, but they really are keeping up with him.
They are. I have whipped up Jani Simicic's race stats as well on the FSR forums. He's got 27 wins in 115 races in the World Championship. So essentially, let's just call it maybe 25% win rate, and then 61 podiums in that same amount of time. So again, let's just call it maybe 60%, maybe 57, whatever it's going to be, podium rate. That's a decent stat rate, I must say. And obviously the 3 World Championships along the way. He's not doing too bad, is he?
He might struggle with this one, though. Here comes Dennis Jordan. He's going to have to defend to the inside. Dennis Jordan to the outside, filling that gap. We saw this. So Simicic sends it on his teammate in defence, side by side between the two. Contact is avoided, but up the inside, I thought Dennis Jordan was going to go into Malmedy. We saw contact between Jordan and Hoyer here last year, remember. That put them off the podium that time around. But Simicic, that was a bit of a send. I don't know if Michi was expecting that, but he needed to do it to defend from Dennis.
Yeah, he had to. There was not really much choice for Simicic, and I suppose the trust is there with Hoyer that they know they can have a bit of a race, go for those moves together. I'm not sure how much communication they're going to have regarding that, those moves. I don't think they're even in the same team speak channel, but they have that trust, that camaraderie to say, yeah, fair enough, we're fighting with Jordan. It's not us versus each other, it's us versus Jordan, and Hoyer knows that he might be able to work his way back through. But Simicic has dumped a lot of pace in that middle sector to extend a decent gap ahead of Jordan, and now he's going to be hoping that Hoyer puts on a nice defence for him.
And this is somehow we thought in half distance that Simicic's race was going down the toilet with those medium tyres. He really started to fall off. But if he can hold on to this 4th place, this is going to be really good indeed. The issue is he's got 3 laps to go, and he's got 3 drivers right behind him. Of course, he's got some teammates involved there, but I don't think we're really at that point of the season for team orders and things like that. And we've seen with the way that Hoy's driving, he's definitely going for this position as well. So definitely an exciting last couple laps here at Spa. We saw that last season. There were fireworks, there was contact. Hopefully no contact this time around, but some nice battles would be good.
Oh no! Hoyer into the wall. That is huge. He rejoins in the path of Davin Mrocek, but Mrocek is fine. Hoyer most definitely is not. A huge snap at the top of the hill at Randy on there has seen Hoyer's brilliant race down the drain.
I was saying he was pushing, and just like Jan Grankvist, having an issue at the top of the hill, and that is an absolute open door for Dennis Jordan. Is now a 1v1 battle between his title rival, like we saw at Imola a couple of weeks ago. Jone came out on top that time around, but this time can Dennis come back? He's got the softer tyres. We've seen Simicic struggling just a tiny bit this race. He's got the track position though, as we're coming on to the final 2 and a bit laps of this race. This is going to be a difficult watch for Hoyer. He's not going to want to see this replay. Uses way too much of that curb, a bit of an overcorrection as well. Fortunately, Mrocek, his teammate, avoids.
Yeah, thankfully. That's rough. That's tough. That's going to be tough for Hoyer to take. I'm sure he's going to be incredibly frustrated. A small mistake again at that speed and going through a Rouge and Radion. It's hard to change the direction of the car once you're committed, and you could see the front left of the car lift up, smack back down again, and unfortunately around he went. Spelling then to what has been a really good race. What is the longevity of Dennis Jordan's tyres looking like though? Of course he's on the medium tyres, which should be faster, but he's been on them for a decent couple of laps now, maybe to the crossover point, but Simicic has gone in deep. Maybe that's strategical to get the slipstream to launch the counter-attack.
Oh my god, did you see that? They were both slowing down to not get the DRS, but here comes Davin Mrocek. Some games being played between the burst driver of Simicic and the Ferrari driver of Dennis Jordan, but they were both too smart to that. The only issue is they've now got their Jone's teammate involved in this one. Direct teammates as well. Remember, this is championship, Constructors Championship on the line between these teams as well. Jordan up the inside in towards Lecom. Davin Mrocek around the outside. We saw contact with Jordan at this corner on this lap last year, but it was Hoyer that year. This time it's Mrocek. Mrocek holds on into that 5th place. Oh my god, this is heating up.
It is final lap and a half really of this race, and it's hit overdrive. Simicic and Mrocek into the mix, and already the mind game is being played, the game of chicken, the cat and mouse, as we've been saying over the course of the race. We saw it in full swing there, with neither of them wanting to be the one to go first. Then Mrocek just sort of said cheers boys, found his way past, and well, now it's control, because Mrocek has found his way into the top 5. A really consistent race, a slow race for Mrocek, but ahead of Dennis Jordan, taking some points away from the Ferrari driver, extending the Burst Esports next few gap in the Constructors Championship as well, or at least minimising the loss to Alpine as well. But that is huge, and starting his final lap now is Colin Sport for what could be his 2nd race win in a row.
Here comes Dennis Jordan up through Blanchimont. He's getting close to Davin Mrocek. He definitely has a lot of hybrid system left. The way he closed up to Simicic, and now the way he's closed up to Mrocek. One final lap to go. Reigning champion Colin Spork leading the way from Jake Dennehan, Peter Burlak in 3rd place. 4th is Jone Simicic, but here is Mrocek and Dennis Jordan battling it out for a top 5 finish here at the Belgium Grand Prix, round 6 of the season. Oh, that's a mistake though from Jordan. It's a slowing down game again. Once again, they both want the DRS coming up the back straight, but I think this time it's too slow for Jordan for the 2nd time, but he's going to get a huge run here.
He is indeed. Oh, a bit of a snap as well at the top of the hill. That is dangerous. He's already closing the gap to Mrocek. Whatever hybrid he's got left, he's going to have to use. Mrocek goes defensive into the Lecom. Left-hand side for the Scuderia Ferrari Esports driver at 2nd place in the championship. And it's Dennis Jordan that gets his way back up into 5th place after a bit of a game of chicken once again. Slowing down, trying to get the DRS. Davin Mrocek, he's got his work cut out for him if he wants to get himself back inside the top 5.
Yeah, I think Mrocek didn't have enough hybrid there to deploy for the whole straight. At one point you saw he just suddenly slowed down, and that was a huge overspeed for Jordan, who got up into that 5th place. As we saw there, I couldn't quite see it. There's a yellow flag in Sector 1 at some point. Don't see any cars stopped. but this battle between Brakshock and Bock has gone on throughout the whole race. It looks like Brakshock's going to hold on that final lap as well. But coming through the final chicane is going to be the Dutchman with the number 1 on his car. Colin Spork for Alpine Esports is going to be taking his second race victory in a row as his championship charge takes another step towards Brazil. Let's see how this goes. 3 races to go, and Colin Spork is absolutely on fire. Takes victory at the Belgian Grand Prix from Jake Dennehan, and Peter Burlak makes it 2 Alpines on the podium. A great race from that team. Jone Simicic quite a way off the lead, but he's going to somehow get 4th place in a race that he really struggled with, I would say. He's not going to be overly happy with the driving, but the result, he'll be happy. He just about holds off Dennis Jordan, his championship rival. 1-2 in the championship, 4th and 5th today. Davin Rocek gets the 6th place with Brakshock and Bock. A great battle inside your top 8. Schluter in 9th place, so TX3 getting 2 cars in the top 10, and Matt Williams rounding out your top 10 on a good day for Royal Blue.
Yeah, it's been a really fun race, and well, what a battle it has been all throughout the race. Colin Spork just stretching his legs out in front, and once he got to that final few laps, and amazing race, just showing the caliber of drivers we've got. A bit of a battle here going on, of course. Yves-Pekka Lalu and Robin Panzer going side by side at the final chicane, bit of contact as well. Robin Panzer able to hang on to it in the end, but yeah, a great battle all the way through the race, and once again proving what a field that we've got here for 2023.
Yeah, certainly a difficult day. Alex Siebel there just coming across the line, not too far off those drivers despite that early pit stop, and that certainly was a little bit of a slow sizzler for a Belgian Grand Prix, but we had a nice battle towards the front for the lead and the rest of the top 10 places as well. Absolute scenes there towards the end. We saw it last year and it continued here in 2023. Colin Spork took victory, the number 1 in P1. Jake Dennehan in 2nd place with Burlak and Simicic just in behind. Dennis Jordan for the 2nd race in a row, 1 position behind Simicic. He's not going to be overly happy, and it's on to Monza for him. Rocek is in 6th place, Brakshock in 7th, Bock, Schluter for TX3, and Matt Williams rounding out your top 10. Certainly giving us loads of action here at Spa-Francorchamps. Martin Mergeli gets an awesome result for him and Visceral. That's the best result of the season as well, up in 11th place. Valeriano, solid day for him in 12th place. Laurent Kiersmakers reserving his way for Race Clutch to 13th place. Callas is in 14th. Prosciutto rounds out your top 15 with Michi Hoyer, unfortunately, after that crash with a couple of laps to go, loses his top 5, top 6 finish and is going to be 16th place for him. Robin Panzer is in 17th. Jukka-Pekka Lalu in the end there couldn't quite get past him with Alex Siebel in 19th place after losing his front wing on the first lap alongside Mazidis, who finished 1 lap down. And unfortunately the final page is basically just all the DNFs. 6 DNFs of Grankvist, Hakimi, Leonos, Van Vukas, Skovron and Zolt Jukes, who had that crash on the first lap. Certainly, Zach, wow, that was not the race I was expecting, but it's spiced things up even more coming into the final third of the season.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what Colin Spork has to say about that, because after Imola, he was pumped. He was ready to go. Speaking of, he is here. He's ready to give us a bit of a chat, but what a race from him. And I don't know. I doubted it after Imola. I was like, it's going to be tough for him to close in the championship. If he keeps this up, though, fair game. Yeah,
certainly an amazing sequence of events for the Alpine driver. He had a solid previous couple of races, and we'll certainly need to find out in a few months just when he's ready. But Zach, what do you think is going to be like for these drivers coming into the final couple of races with the tension like this? It's certainly going to be difficult, isn't it, Zach, for them to hold on to these positions?
Oh, it will be. Yeah, it's you know these drivers are going to have to bring their A game for the final 3 rounds of the season. Monza, Suzuka, Sao Paulo left to go. It's going to be tough, and there's no margin for error now. There's no bad day in the office. Nah, you have to be inside the top 5, podium, wins at the minimum, and, well, yeah, bring it on.
And here he is, the race winner for the Belgian Grand Prix for 2 years in a row, Colin Spork for Alpine Esports. That was a very nice race for you, Colin. You had a lot of control there at the front. I think you were just playing with Jake a little bit during that race.
Yep. Yeah. Hi guys. Well, good to be back. Like I said last time, I'll be back, and here we are. But yeah, race was really nice, just really controlled. A few times I tried to pull away from Jake early on, but the slipstream is just it's insane. So I knew if I wanted to pull away, I would need to drain the battery. I did that a little bit in the beginning of the race to try and create a gap with whoever would drop, and then well, it was Journey and Dennis, so that was of course perfect for me. But yeah, Jake had some incredible pace as well, and so did Petar. We were just all kind of following each other because pulling away was just impossible with the slipstream. And yeah, from that point on, it was just who was just in front. You try to overtake. Maybe you hope the other guy is low on battery, so you try to pull away. But soon enough, you always find out like when the other guy just uses like 2 to 3 tenths of his battery. You're like, oh yeah, it ain't gonna work. Let's just continue again. And then, well, of course, during the pit stops, you need to make sure you don't do anything wrong, like wrong entry or whatever. I had some Tokyo drift going into the pit entry, but that was kind of enjoyable, to be honest. And yeah, then it was just I came out behind Jake, and I saved quite some battery in the end of the stint before, and I was like, yeah, well, once I get past now, I think Jake will be through his battery, because the lap times we were doing at the end of the second stint were really quick. So, well, in the back of my mind, I kind of knew that was almost impossible without just deploying the battery a lot. So yeah, from that moment on, I finally had the opportunity, like I said, that the other guy was out of battery, and yeah, from that point on I was gone, and I was just able to control the race. But yeah, I would say a very controlled and a very lovely race. I would say that was really nice with the hot weather going on. I think this was a good race for me.
And how was your preparation for this race? Of course, it looked very strong. You had your teammate up there on the podium as well. It looks like Alpine is really starting to come for it in the second half of this season. Yeah.
Preparation has been very strong for the let's say the past 3 races. I think from Silverstone onwards, we found something in the car. And from that point onwards, we just worked our asses off to get the car up there every time. Just 2 weeks of full-on prep, like I said, same as Imola, like 8 to 12 hours a day, just absolutely hammering it, making sure we have a car and just nailing it at the moment. Quali wasn't optimal, lost 2 tenths, just I don't know, slight moment, but those things happen. And luckily we had that's the good thing when you practice a lot, you'll have the gap for even a bad quali, you'll be P2. So yeah, that was really lovely. And yeah, the first lap was a little bit let's say enjoyable racing with Journey, but some banging here and there. But that's I think that's lap 1 racing and sim racing is beautiful to do that. So that was very enjoyable, and thanks to Journey for the close but fair racing there. And let's keep it going for the rest of the season. I'm coming for their asses.
Absolutely, and yeah, we'll congratulate you for this race, and I'm sure we'll probably speak to you again this season.
Bloody hope so.
Yeah, good luck for the final 3 races.
Cheers guys.
Now bring in Jake Dennehan, of course. Had a very good start to the race, getting that pole position by just 0.02 of a second. But Jake, unfortunately, it wasn't quite your day in terms of the race win, but you really gave Colin a run for his money.
Yeah, I'm happy with P2. I'll take it. I mean, yeah, I was never really expecting to keep the lead after getting pulled because of how Spy is, but yeah, I somehow kept up with Colin, which is an improvement from last race. He finished something like 35 seconds ahead of me last time, so yeah, I'm happy with the improvements.
And how was the sort of racing as such at the front? Because I think there's a bit of cat and mouse games of who wanted to lead, who wanted to go into second place. Was there ever sort of a time where you thought that you would sort of have that advantage over Colin?
Once I got back by Colin, I tried to pull away, and I wasn't really able to. He just kept in my DRS and using the battery, so it was fairly simple, the battle between me and him. We just kept trading positions, and it worked out for us. We still had pretty good pace, and we were pulling away, so yeah, it was fairly simple.
And that was your best result since the Canadian Grand Prix 3 races ago. What are your sort of ambitions coming to the end of the year? I mean, you've had a top 10 finishes all throughout the season so far. What can you expect from the final 3?
Well, at the beginning of the season, I didn't really expect to be getting podiums and such, so I'm very happy with how it's going so far. I think if I can get top 3 in the championship by the end, I'll be happy.
Yeah, it's certainly a good, good target for you. So yeah, good luck for the final 3 races.
Thank you.
And lastly, we'll finish with the second Alpine driver of today, Petter Burlak, having a very, very solid race, really getting involved, especially in that first stint. But unfortunately, Petter, just being undercut, you dropped off the back of your teammate Sporg there, and you weren't quite able to keep up for the race victory.
Yeah, thanks. Not too bad, I would say. First stint, the car probably felt the best, and I felt I could follow, and I guess the better choice was to pit lap 15, since we had to choose between Colin and I because of the shared pit box. Yeah, but I lost just so much. The tires were completely dead on lap 17, so yeah, there was a 3-second gap already, and I knew that I was slightly slower at the very least. I mean, at my best, I was slightly slower than Colin, and so I just tried to keep a solid rhythm. But I was struggling with the car a little bit, like in some sections of Sector 2. So I would say, considering that I was changing the setup only 5 minutes before qualifying, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's still your best result of the season as well, first time on the podium. Do you think you can sort of challenge Colin for a race victory? He seems very, very motivated for the final few races. Do you think you can sneak a win or a second place in there?
I might. Yeah, I think so. I just need a really good qualifying, and I think he needs a slightly worse qualifying because I think he's putting out a lot of effort in, and he found a concept which works for him. Like, he's working pretty hard for it, and kudos. So he deserves the win. As for me, if I find a sweet spot, then I think I could fight him, yes.
Yeah, so good job today, and yeah, good luck for the final 3 races.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was certainly nice to hear some words there once again from Colin. He was he seems very motivated, very calm. I'm expecting some more of the same when we go to Italy in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, let's do it. Bring it on. Wow. Like, what are these guys having for breakfast? Honestly, they are coming in every single round and just smashing it out the park. Colin Sporg, I mean, again, we touched on the fact it was a bit of a slower start to the season, and then we get to Silverstone, and it's just like, has he like gone back to 2022 or something? He's driven the wheels off of that car, and that fight with Dennehan all the way through the race, Burlak being up there as well. All 3 of them, had a firm grip on that race for the majority of it, and then obviously we've got the likes of Simicic, Jordan and such fighting for the rest of the championship, and with it being really, really close now as well. We've got, I think it's going to be Simicic on 138, Jordan on 125, Dennehan 117, and then Sport 113. That brings everything into contention. There's plenty to fight for. One bad race for any of them, and it could be a pivotal moment in the championship.
And that concludes the Belgian Grand Prix for this year, 2023, the FSR World Championship. 3 races to go. We've got Monza, Suzuka, and Interlagos. The next race is on the 10th of September in just a few weeks' time, and we can't wait to see what is going to happen. We've got the Alpines chasing down the Burst and the Ferrari of Simicic and Jordan. Let's see what happens. It's been myself, Cameron Roger, and Zach Sweeney alongside me in the commentary booth. We had Mike Yao from Simply Race on the broadcast production behind the scenes. And thanks, of course, to VCO for the partnership of the FSR World Championship for 2023. We thank you for watching, and until Monza in a couple of weeks' time, it's goodbye for now.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols, and welcome to
Who's going to break Naismith's world title?
These 2 go. Itchy Hoy is going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done.
What a race it's been.